Hello and welcome to a new video. Since my previous dress didn't turn out as quite accurate as I wanted it to be, I thought of making a little research of how to construct a garment from the 18th century. And I came to the conclusion that there is hardly any information out there that describes the exact process of how to construct a pattern. So yeah, but I found also quite interesting informations about the process of cutting the fabric and the tailor's job in general. Turns out that each tailor had a special and individual method of how to measure a client, since the measuring tape was not invented yet. So what they actually used was a paper strip that had notches in it, which was basically holes. So that's how the tailor would measure the client. So since each tailor had his own measuring tape that he made, that would mean that it's actually really difficult to see how the pattern was constructed, since you didn't have this exact measuring tape. It was almost like a clef on a music sheet, I guess. The first known clothing pattern appeared in Spain in 1589, and I found two books which names I unfortunately can't pronounce, so I will just put them right here. And also I put all the names of the books in the description down below if you're curious. And yeah, in particular I was looking into one book that is called L'Art de Tailleur by de Garçon, and I hope I pronounce it correctly because I'm not fluent in French, never had it in school, so my apologies for any mistakes. So yeah, in this book you can find mainly description of each clothing, like the justaucorps or the manteau. There are so many in there, and also different kinds of fabric that you would use for this era. And the most important thing in this book is how to place each pattern on the fabric, because fabric was really expensive back then, so of course you would have to be precise in where to put the pattern on the fabric to avoid fabric waste. So basically the tailor had not only to measure the client with his own measuring tape, but also to observe the body shape. For example, if the person had a round back or lower shoulders, you would need to consider that in the pattern itself. And actually, we use this kind of method today in the modern time, so I would do that as well, because when you take measurements you don't see the body shape, so you see only numbers, of course. So I will just look at the body type or body shape, and then would make my adjustments on my pattern. So yeah, this is really interesting that we still use this method today. And then the book describes the process of how to place the pattern on the fabric and the folding, etc. So what the tailor would actually do first is to tear the edge of the fabric to achieve a straight grain, and then fold the fabric in half lengthwise, not widthwise like we do today. Actually, fabric back then didn't have standardized sizes, so also the art of tailoring was it to look at the fabric and actually figuring out how to place each pattern So yeah, this is also an interesting information for me. And after folding the fabric, the tailor would use an already made paper pattern that he already had in his stash, which was apparently standardized. And he would trace that pattern onto the fabric with chalk, and then he would take the measurements from the client and trace it to the actual fabric. He wouldn't make any mock-up, I think that's what the book is saying. And actually that makes more sense, because any kind of fabric was expensive back then. So the art of tailoring was actually a combination of pattern drafting and draping on the body itself, which I think was... So the tailor had to have a lot of skills to do that, and also to meet the client's expectation and achieving the right silhouette for the era. I think this was not that easy, I believe. Actually, the Patterns of Fashion Book 5 from Janet Arnold has already a construction method with the special measuring tape that you will make yourself. So it works in half. So for example, you mark half of the bust or half of the back, etc. But this pattern is for stays. So I'm not quite sure if this is the right method that the tailors back then would use for the bodice construction. They might have. It looks certainly similar to an actual bodice. So yeah, might be. My conclusion is that there probably is no book that describes the exact method of tailoring or pattern making, and out of 3 reasons. And the first one is that there is no standardized measuring method, which would make it more difficult. And second, actually, the profession of the tailor and pattern making in particular was kept secret. So of course nobody wanted their pattern to be copied or their techniques to be used. So this seems to be a very secret profession back then. And the third reason is that patterns were mostly inherited. And this actually makes also sense, because paper was hard to get back then, and I'm guessing also not cheap. So you would have the standardized paper patterns that you would adjust to the measurement of each person or each client. So I think this is the most accurate information, in my opinion. It at least it makes sense to me. So we already have the most accurate pattern making technique, and that is to just take the already existing pattern from an actual historical garment and adjust it to our own measurements. So this will be the most accurate method. And I think I will stick to that, but still I see it kind of like a challenge to make a historical garment with the modern techniques. So let's see if I will do that. I hope you liked this video and found it informative, and see you guys in the next one like usual. Bye!